Adoption Warrior family. I'm happy to come back to you today with another topic that's near and dear to my heart. Um, and it's a little bit sensitive one, so there may be some personal views on this one, but it is about things to do when you suspect abuse in your adoption home or foster home. So there's a list of things here that we're going to go through. I kind of wrote them, maybe not in the correct order, so we're going to kind of go back and forth on each item as the topic goes through. So one of the things that I want to really bring across in this is that if you suspect abuse in a home, to be really careful about. I don't want to necessarily know your facts. And a lot can be taken wrong in that area. So when we come to abuse, there's so many different types of abuse when it comes to children or even adults. But this today is about children. You got emotional abuse, you got verbal abuse, you got physical abuse, and all of these are equally important. And a lot of the times when adoption kids or foster kids, may already come from that type of environment, per why they're in an adoption home already or foster home, and so they're already traumatized coming from a home like that. So they definitely don't need to be in a foster home or adopted home that is continuing on, because it's all about bettering their lives and helping them build themselves for the future. And so, a lot of times, we have different parenting ideas, different parenting mindset or growing up. My dad is not going to raise me the same that your dad has. Each parent has their own technique, and it may and may not work. So when it comes to wanting, saying that there's this child or something, this child is being abused in this foster home or adoption home, I would make sure that I would know what's going on versus assuming what's going on. One of the things that, if it's immediate danger, of course you would call 911. If it's just obvious, that there's abuse going on in this foster home or adoption home, you'd also contact CPS and let them know what's going on. You'd provide as much information to them as you possibly can. Make sure that the information you provide to CPS or to the local law enforcement, that is 100% facts, that this is what's happening in this home. And you document everything that you possibly can. And like I said, make sure that the facts are correct. You know what you saw. Maybe they're talking about it at school. That would go to a hearsay type of deal. The child could talk about it at church, at school. You could send a text message or a phone call. Maybe it's physical abuse where you can see it with your own eyes, and the child can let you know what's going on, or just kind of look at their body language, how they say, movement that they make. If you make a quick movement and they jump really quick, hey, that might be a sign, but it's not 100%. So it's kind of things that you look out for. Also, you would consider talking to that family. If you know that family personally, or it's a church family or a school family, or maybe your aunt or your uncle or your brothers and sisters adopted kids or something like that. If there's a concern, I would encourage that you would talk to them. Say, hey, how the kids coming? I know you recently adopted them, or you adopted them for a while. How's that going? Kind of lean in towards more of a supportive than accusing somebody of what's going on. give them resources, counseling, support groups that they could go to if you see somebody struggling with their foster kids or adopted kids. There's absolutely nothing wrong with going to counseling. There's nothing wrong with going to support groups. We all have our demon in us, as some would say, that we struggle with. Some of these children have, like I said, come from abusive families. So maybe they need some counseling or resources, support groups that they are struggling with. And when you contact CPS, make sure that you give them all the facts, everything you know, everything you've seen, and be more of a helpful than a hindrance. You never want to see a child being placed again and again in a home. And of course, if there's absolutely abuse going on, that child should be moved from that adoption home or foster home and placed somewhere else. But also, I would like to think that that's the last resort that we do, unless there's absolutely some abuse going on. Is that a struggle is not abuse. So if you have a misbehaving child and the parent talks to him maybe in a loud way or something like that, it's not necessarily abuse. So that's something that, like I was saying earlier, each parent has their own technique of how they raise their children. And sometimes, if somebody would yell at that child, say, "Oh man, they're verbally abusing that child." And so things like that, you need to make a sound judgment, just follow the lead and see, if you see continuing. Hey, I noticed you're getting really frustrated with this child. Have you tried this or have you tried that? Instead of just downright calling CPS or the law. And again, I can't stress enough that if 100% sure that something is going on, yes, absolutely call CPS. Absolutely call the local law enforcement. If it's something that you see going on right then in front of your eyes of abuse, physical abuse, call the 911 immediately on the spot. And so, again, we are here to encourage the kids, help them grow. We don't want to see any of them get hurt in any kind of way. And maybe the parents have been abused when they were a kid, and so they're trying to raise kids or get kids from a foster home or adoption home that also have been abused. And it's just a chain reaction, just over and over. You call I forget what they call that, breaking barriers or breaking the chains, a generational curse of abuse again and again and again. And so this is something, to be a supportive team. Maybe at your churches or your school has programs for different things, just like here on the podcast we talk about different topics. You can look into your local resources and try to help the family out that's struggling with that child, whether it's behavior or vocal or something like that. It's just very important to stay on top of this. And this is a very sensitive topic to a lot of us, even to me. I've been in CPS, I've been in the foster home for a very short time, adopted and stuff like that. And also, again, like I'm involved in a child advocacy here locally. So I experienced a lot of things personally and impersonally. See a lot of things, and so we're here to make sure that these kids are always safe. They're always in a home that they're loved and cared for, provided for, given that emotional support from wherever they come from, especially the ones that are abused. That's something that's really near and dear to my heart, is with the kids that have been abused. But we never want to see people tore down as a human being of who they really are. Again, this is a podcast of faith. I believe that every person is a child of God, that God designed them perfectly for His will. And so again, we're here to protect these kids at all costs. And the last statement I will make on this is, again, if you suspect anything, any abuse in the home, please look into it. Make it find some resources. Do call 911 or CPS if it's immediate danger. But today, I hope you found this topic to be interesting. And again, don't be a stranger to a child in need.